Some bands have some trepidation after a first album blows up the way yours did. I sense none of that on this record. You've said that you don't think you could have made a better album.
Yeah, I mean, when we came out of the studio and up to this date, I still feel that way, yeah. I stand by that. It was one of those ones where, yeah, there's certain pressure before you go in, it's undeniable. But we took that stance of coming home, take 6 weeks off, not 6 months. You know, I think that like staying away from the studio for that kind of time just allows it all to build up, and then suddenly people's heads start to go, and some of that pressure can get to you. We just didn't. We very deliberately made sure we were straight in, back to making music, back to having fun, trying to recall what it was like before there was any of this attention on the band, you know.
Yeah. And you went back to the same space.
We sure did, yeah. And that was another thing. I think we took a number of steps to ground ourselves after what was undeniably an incredible 2 years. You know, it was a special time, and we were so thankful for all those experiences, but none of it was in the real world, you know. We are very normal people at the end of the day, and down to earth. And it was important to us to get back to Glasgow, get back to understanding where we were at before any of that attention, and really focus in our minds in that way before we went back in to try and make music again.
That's a really wise interim, I think. 6 weeks. Like you said, 6 months, you might be out of fighting form, and some of that pressure might get you. Lauren, did you have that same confidence and enthusiasm the whole way through? Like, you knew this is your best work?
I think it was more towards the end when we were like pulling the album together and figuring out what the focus was, that we felt that we'd made something that was a lot more refined version of Chvrches this time. But I suppose when we gave ourselves like a good 3 months or something of just writing and writing and writing before we started to think about that kind of thing. And I think that was helpful just because we're kind of brushing off the cobwebs and really getting into it.
Iain, you've been in bands for a couple decades now.
Oh,
Dude,
when you say
that's
that, so you've nearly been in bands for a quarter of a century. How does it feel to be so old?
That wasn't the question. You laughed before I could actually finish the question. The question was, can you put your finger on what it is that makes you so confident in what you're doing with Chvrches?
Yeah, I think that it's something that happens in the studio. And I think it's something that happened really early on when we started working together. I've collaborated with a lot of people in those last aforementioned 2 decades.
I did not mean it.
What does it feel like to be keeping a crypt and being in a band?
Thanks for that. Yeah, thank you. No, but with Martin and Lauren, there was a chemistry like right away, right from the word go, and it was like, hold up, what's happening? This is very unprecedented, and it's that energy and that chemistry that's kind of like carried the songwriting through momentum wise, and you know, from the first album to the second album, it's still there. It's even better now. It's more refined. And I'm just, I guess we're really lucky that we managed to all come together at the right time.
I sense a positivity, not just confidence, but positivity even in the lyrics. Certain lyrics like, we will take the best parts of ourselves and make them gold. Where did that sentiment come from?
I think, well, that's probably one of the songs on the album that's kind of written about like growing up and changing, being in the band and that experience. So yeah, I guess it's nice to be positive for once, isn't it? Like a lot of the lyrics are a little bit more introspective or melancholic. So I think we never really try and think, today we're gonna write a sad song, or today we're gonna write a love song, or whatever. It's just more what comes out naturally, and then we'll, you know, balance the lyrics with the production. And it was always kind of important for us to have the light and shade and things like that. And I like that when I listen to this album, it sounds more like it should sit together as a whole record than the first one did necessarily. And I'm not sure, I think that's why that is. I guess it must be, you know, we've developed as writers, but also I suppose we went in this time thinking we were going to write an album, whereas the first time we wrote over a really protracted period of time, and the end product was more of a collection of where we were at that point, I suppose. We didn't really sit down and think we're making a record necessarily.
You weren't writing to make a record. You were just writing to write and see how it goes. Okay. Do you guys have shared influences, Martin? I'll ask you that.
Some. Yeah.
Some not.
Some not so much. We meet in the middle in a bunch of kind of interesting places. Yeah. Most of them in the late 80s. I guess that's the ones that we all can agree on, the classics, you know. A lot of British synth pop, Eurythmics and bands like that.
And what do you disagree on? The Bodyguard soundtrack?
No, we agree on the Bodyguard
we're
soundtrack.
Good, we're good
Okay.
with we're good with the Bodyguard soundtrack. That's fine.
It's nothing but net.
Yeah, more. I guess I probably listen to a bit more hip hop
Mhm.
than the others do, or a bit more kind of aggressive electronic music. But and Iain listens to different stuff, and Lauren different stuff again. You know, that's all kind of part of the three personalities that make up ultimately the kind of creative mind, hive mind.
The hive
You know-
mind, I
you
like
know what I
that.
mean? Like, you know, and all the that. It can be challenging at times if people are pulling in different directions. But luckily with us, we've got a very there's no ego going on in this band. There's no one making selfish decisions in this band, which it can be a real problem for a lot of other bands. And we know that when someone comes with an issue or a problem, that it's coming from a pure place, and that is a very, very important thing when you're in the studio.
That's a huge thing to be able to trust that in each other.
Mm.
Yeah. As you mentioned, you guys have had a great couple of years. Iain, is there any moment that stands out as surreal?
Yesterday was one of them. When we found out that we were in the top 10 in the US, the album, and that was just mind blowing. But there's been loads of particularly live moments along the way where we found ourselves in these situations that were just like surreal, like opening for Depeche Mode at San Siro in Milan, which is,
Wow.
looking out to 60,000 people and they're just little dots on the horizon. It's like, cool, this is the thing. And doing the first weekend at Coachella last year, which was just an incredible moment for us. We weren't anticipating the level of interest for a band in that kind of mid-afternoon slot.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We
things
met
like that.
Eddie Izzard here.
Here.
actually,
We did.
Huh.
Yeah.
which was very exciting for all of us because we were big Izzard fans. I don't think my sarcasm would be what it is today without Eddie Izzard. So
that's a big standout moment for you?
that was very exciting.
Yeah.
And we were just sitting in the green room
were too
pretending
scared to
everything was
speak to him.
normal, but inside I was just like, oh, there he is. But you don't want to bother him. So I was just pretending to like check my emails. But inside I'm like, it's Eddie Izzard. The Sange. The Ranch. But you must get that all the time. People talking to him about like trays and Star Wars and, speaking shit French.
That's
It's
Rubbish
his
French,
it's
can
his
I
own
say that?
fault, to be fair.
It's a very funny man.
it is hard to think through your approach in that moment when you weren't expecting to see this person, right?
And you don't want to be, they're in their safe place. You don't want to be the person that made them uncomfortable when they thought they were safe. So, yeah.
What about you, Martin? Any moments that stand out from the last couple of years?
Yeah, there's this venue in Glasgow called the Glasgow Barrowlands. It's like an old ballroom from the 60s that's become a really famous venue in our city. It's the number one place to play. It's in a really grubby area of town. It's in a dangerous place. In fact, it's in the East End, and there's always been that little edge to that venue. And when I was like 14, 15, I always said if I could sell that out, I would consider that a success, And we did that 3 times on the last campaign. So, and every one of them special in a different way.
I think that's an answer that a lot of bands give. They all have that venue in mind in their hometown, and that was, the goal. I think I heard the Arcade Fire say that about a venue in Montreal, probably 500 people or something like that. But that's when they knew they had arrived.
Right. Yeah. And that was a really special moment.
This album showcases a lot of focus. You guys have mentioned the word refinement, and you made it back in your home studio with no other writers.
Certainly not.
Why that independence? How did you manage to keep that independence? Lauren, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it's just how we've always worked as a band. And Iain and Martin have worked in production in various projects for a long time. So when we started writing and recording, it just made sense to do it that way. And that's how we created music so quickly. And when we were thinking about coming in to make the second album, we talked for a short amount of time about going somewhere else and recording. Maybe we would produce with somebody else, but it just didn't feel like the right choice for us. And I think it's quite a transitional time for any band. And I don't really like the idea of somebody else telling you what your band is.
Yeah.
Like nobody should know more than the 3 people that are involved in it. So I think it was important for us to just remove ourselves from the industry as much as possible and just have a sense of normality and calm while we were making it. And these guys are really talented at what they do anyway, so no one's going to send it back and be like, there's a horrible hissing sound the whole way through. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So
Actually, they did at one point, didn't they?
that was a terrible vinyl with pops and clicks and all kinds of terrible things.
See, it was just as important to do that because there's this in the music industry now. There's this culture of co-writing that goes on all over the shop, and it's it's fine for other people. I guess we have one foot in the pop world right now, so it's very much commonplace, and it's big teams of writers going away and making these records that people just recycle, cycle, tour, and by the time they finish touring, the next album's ready, and that's. It was important for us to make a concise statement as a band in an age where even things are being sold as a band, as a concise package, as creatives, as writers. That's not really true, is it?
It is interesting that bands they establish themselves with a piece of work or maybe a couple pieces of work, and then they move away from that. They move away from the place where they've been working. They move away from the people they've been working with. Why do you think there's that temptation?
Fear.
Sorry?
Fear, I suppose. Because I guess at this point it's really nice for us that the good things that people say about us are all ours. So if you go to a show and someone's responding really well to your songs and that music's communicating with people, the ownership of that is amazing. And then if people hate it and they're slagging you off, you're like, well, at least I did it the way I wanted to do it, And I feel like it's a bit sad sometimes when you think about how much inauthentic, not genuine stuff there is in the kind of industry we work in. So it's nice for us to be able to write stuff that feels genuine for us and, conduct ourselves in a way that we feel fitting, And what's right for us isn't right for other people necessarily. But yeah, I guess I kind of feel like if we were like, okay, we should have a second album where we get like all these amazing songwriters who've written this number one and this number one to come and do it, it wouldn't be a Chvrches record. It wouldn't feel like anything we've done. Same with features and stuff. A lot of people ask us, why doesn't it? Well, there are featured vocalists on your album. But to me, like sometimes there's amazing features on records and they sound great, but it would just be... I thought you were going to... I was like, the Ariana Grande Weekend tune.
That's amazing.
That's a great feature. There you go. But I think it'd be really bizarre if we had something on our record. It wouldn't sound like a Chvrches album at all. It'd be very strange.
It seems almost like it's the whole rock thing. When the Stones stopped doing the other people's songs and started writing their own songs, and then the whole kind of rock thing happened. It feels like that was something of a blip, historically, that bands, were like authentic and did their own music and stuff. And because before that, it was all teams of writers in Tin Pan Alley and like, stars like Elvis being made, and the songs being written for them. And in many ways, it kind of feels like the industry's come full circle and it's come back to that again.
It's interesting. I never really thought
some
about it
people
that
are
way.
incredible musicians, incredible performers. Maybe they're not incredible writers. And some people are incredible writers, but not incredible vocalists or something. But I guess we're lucky we can keep it in-house. Also, it means that you actually get paid. So it's quite
helps.
nice. I can buy my own breakfast cereal and it's pretty good.
Were you ever tempted to leave that room though? I mean, you record in a three-bedroom apartment, right? Converted studio.
Yeah. I mean, that's a safe space though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, no, we weren't. We were definitely not tempted to leave there. And these kind of shiny carrots get dangled in front of your eyes all the time in this business, and they're attractive in the moment, but we're all about protecting the kind of creative dynamic and the energy that we have together. And we're very much of the opinion that if something works and it feels especially energizing and it feels special in its own way, then why it's insane to change it.
How have you guys been able to maintain that level-headedness? Because of late, you guys have been dealing with more than just music. You've dealt with some vicious attacks online. You guys have maintained a level of level-headedness.
Well,
where does that come from?
I guess that just comes from our personalities as people. We like to conduct ourselves with class and hold our heads up at the end of the day. We don't get into these shouting matches with people. That's not what we're about.
Plus, I think as much as we're aware of the negative aspects of what we're doing, and it's important to draw a line under those things and make it known how you're choosing to deal with those things. At the same time, we want to try and put something positive out into the community that's surrounding the band, and I think just stuff like making just really silly things that I think if you're less on top of what you're doing can kind of get away from you. Like we don't ever want like meet and greets to be paid for. We don't want people to have to buy stuff to get into signings. And those are things that like just come up like because it's like a standard thing. And well, I don't want fans of the band to have to pay to have their loyalty valued or something. It feels really weird.
Yeah.
So I guess, just trying to make sure that we're conducting ourselves in that way. And people talk a lot about how we're a pop band and blah, blah, blah. But I think, there is pop elements to the music, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean we have to change the ethos of how we conduct ourselves within music, I suppose.
That's a product of the times more than anything else. You don't have to be a pop act to make pop music anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't have to be an alternative band to make alternative music anymore. You can be whatever you want.
I guess what I was getting at was like, do you guys support each other and sort of discuss those decisions? And is it something explicit or is it just implied that's all of your individual values and you just...
We spend a lot of time talking about it. It's important that we understand every scenario completely as a team, as together, as a partnership and a business, for lack of a better word. And we have to discuss and debate and present a reasoned opinion. But I don't know. I think it's pretty simple with this band. I don't think there's not much debate goes on when, especially if if you're talking about the negativity, the small amount of negativity that we receive regarding Lauren and the misogyny. It's not a difficult conversation for us. We can't.
You're not going to throw me under the bus.
We can't sit back and let our friend and colleague be spoken to like that. This isn't trolling. This isn't name calling. This isn't bullying. This isn't criticism. More to the point, this is like threats of death and brutal sexual violence. Like, well, I'm a good person. I'm not going to stand. I wouldn't stand by and let anyone in the street take that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny when people say they're like, oh, well, what if you get bad press for it? And I'm like, don't really think. And then whenever you see people saying like, oh, she should just shut up and get over it. Like she seems like she's a bit. The other day someone was like, she seems like a bit of an uptight, stuck-up tart. And I was like, well,
wow,
maybe so. But I was like, I may be in my free time. But I don't know. To me, I was like, that's just obviously incorrect. That's just an obviously incorrect stance. So, and we get so many people coming up to us at shows or signings that's talking about how that stuff resonates with them and how it means something and they love the music, but they like the ethos of the community around it. And I think, those kind of things were what made me love a lot of bands that I loved when I was growing up. And we only get to do this once, so we might as well do it in a way that feels right rather than a kind of smash and grab, like sell all your morals to the highest bidder and then your career will be dead in however long, or you'll have like left it because you hated it so much.
But that again comes back to people making decisions out of fear. Like they make decisions because they're all too aware that this sort of thing doesn't last. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but
I'll sleep well at night.
Whilst it does, I would rather that every element of our output, creative and otherwise, was done with dignity and something that we can stand next to for the next 30 years and say, yeah, we did it in the right way. We did it in the way that made sense to us.
What's that experience been like as far as starting out as a band and your intention is to just make songs that you love together and it's become something more than that? What's that experience been like?
I think we've just learned by doing a lot of the time. We kind of figured out what we think about certain things and how we want to do things by just being faced with the opportunity and then talking about it and just kind of feeling our way around. And I guess it's been helpful that we've been so busy a lot of the time. Like we've been focusing on touring and then focusing on writing and juggling all that stuff. But those are also the elements of being in bands that we are more familiar with. So I would prefer to bury myself in that aspect than listen to a lot of the noise that goes on outside the band. Because I guess it's only occasionally you get a little glimpse of what it might look like from a distance. Like we went to Coachella this year on holiday, like with some friends, and it was weird to be looking at the stage that we had played, and I was like, oh crap, like there's actually some quite big bands playing on that, and I was like, is that no? But then I would rather live in disbelief, to be honest, than start like, I think too much. You have to be self-aware to an extent, but too much like self-awareness and self-absorption.
Yeah, I mean, back again to that idea of taking 6 weeks off instead of 6 months off.
For sure.
Especially going in from the first to the second album, especially that you can't take anything for granted at that point. You know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of bands that come along, they have a moment, they're a buzz band for a time, they put out one record and then, you know, it's gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll take more than 6 weeks between album 2 and album 3.
I'm gonna have
I
a
think we
big
might.
fat nap.
Yeah, and that.
Good.
But I think on album 1, I think it's mostly about kind of firefighting. You know, it's like, you know, things come at you from all angles, and because we'd never been in that position before with a band of this size, it was just, you know, like juggling like loads of plates.
Previously, we couldn't give it away.
I know,
We were like,
right?
does anyone want to interview us? Does anyone want to book us for shows?
But this
Please,
time, I think we know what the job entails, like from top to bottom, and we're prepared and we're ready to you know, to focus, and that's a really important thing.
Well, we're ready to hear another song.
Ah,
Okay, cool.
What are you going to play for us?
We're going to play the last song on our record, Afterglow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could you set up that song for us? Tell us a story about that song.
Oh, I was like, no, it's already set up. We just played it. Did you not see? I was like, you were right there. Well, we argued about this song for a very long time.
We did.
And we just basically, after our point, had to put it to one side because I was like, it's causing a lot of distress. We have to like leave it because we just couldn't agree on what it was meant to be like, and there's so many very various versions of it. And in the end, it was like a couple of days before the end of the recording process, and Iain and Martin just went in and took out the instrumentation that was there and put in these kind of synth wash sounds that are on the album, and we did like a one take vocal over the top, and that's the final version that's on the album. And I feel like it's a really nice epilogue kind of coda to the album. It just draws a line under everything. So
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to hear it. Thanks so much for the conversation. You guys can head over.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you.